Hey everybody, hope you're doing well. Got an interesting show for you today on this Thursday. We are going to talk about artificial intelligence. Where are we headed with AI? Will it be beneficial to humankind, or could it potentially be destructive? And we'll jump off a little bit from there and talk about the importance of craft, the importance of people creating unique things for us. Today's show is brought to you by Salmagundi. This is a hat and accessory store in Jamaica Plain, Boston, Massachusetts. You can shop with them online through their website. So yeah, pop over there if you're looking for a hat or a scarf or something cool like that. Always a good idea to support these businesses. We're also brought to you today by John Prine. He is a great American songwriter who passed away yesterday due to complications with COVID-19. Just someone I've always admired. I love his music. I need to listen to more of it. But he really is the king of that simple melody with profound lyrics that just kind of get stuck in your head. You know, someone who can write something like, I heard Allah and Buddha were singing at the Savior's feet, and up the sky an Arabian rabbi fed Quaker oats to a priest. Words like that just stick with you. It's a great time to go back and revisit some of these great, great musicians. Okay, let's start the show. Okay, so my big question today comes from my cousin JJ. He sent me a question about artificial intelligence. He wanted me to pontificate here a little bit about whether or not AI will be beneficial for humankind, or will it be problematic. While I think concerns about artificial intelligence are warranted, we might just want to look back on some technologies from the past so we can pump the brakes a little bit here on how concerned we are. This stuff is going to be coming on a little slower, I think, than we all assume. Andrew Yang, for instance, the Democratic presidential candidate, was very much about this universal basic income as a way to fight automation in our economy. Now, automation is a very big concern moving forward. I agree with that. But I just don't see us automating as much as quickly as most people think we will. So Andrew Yang's big thing was the automation of trucking and transport of goods in the United States, and how that would mean losing millions and millions of jobs. But what we have to realize is that autonomous vehicles in general are going to take a long time to roll out. There's also the fact that we as a society have to decide to step into that realm. We have to decide whether or not we want to give up that control over our vehicles. I don't see Americans being willing to do so. So I really don't see self-driving cars becoming something that is ubiquitous across the country. For transport of goods, especially with trucking, it certainly has the potential to become a big part of that industry. But you're still going to need truckers or someone to be in those vehicles, or at least to be present in some capacity. We saw this with the automation of checkouts at grocery stores and drugstores, where years and years ago, everyone believed that we would see no more checkers in grocery stores. It would all be automated. We'd all just go in, come out. That hasn't been the case. There are certainly a lot of self-checkouts, but there's always an attendant there, and you still always see multiple checkers working in grocery stores. So while automation as a whole certainly has an impact on our economy, I just don't think it's going to be nearly what we think it might be. We also need to think about the fact that, in general, the population chooses not to accept these things. It wasn't too long ago that I made a bet with a friend of mine about Google Glass. Now, she was adamant, and a lot of people at that time were, that in 5 years we'd all be wearing Google Glasses. And even back then I knew it was never going to happen for the simple fact that people don't like wearing glasses. So I have found that when technologies come out that don't actually do anything new for us, and we're being asked to take a large step to accept them, we just deny them and push them away. Now, this may not be the case with automation or artificial intelligence in general. But at the same time, we have to realize that we as a society collectively have the choice to limit how much of a part of our lives, how disruptive these new technologies become. So yeah, the first thing people generally freak out about is job loss. We've seen it in manufacturing. Robots and machines are doing a lot of the work that we're seeing, particularly here in more developed country, though there's still a lot of labor abroad, cheaper labor. But we here, especially in capitalist societies, deal with that. We make the choice to support entire industries that are unnecessary just so that people can have jobs. Now, I don't want to denigrate what anyone does here, but if you look at like realtors or private health insurance, car salesmen, even a lot of people working in restaurants and the service industry, what you see here are types of jobs that are propped up willingly by the rest of us. We don't need a realtor to help us buy a house these days. Well, we don't need private health insurance. We could go a different route. There's an entire industry that's does a lot of good work and does a lot of good things. But at the end of the day, I think we're all realizing that they function as this bloated middleman. The restaurant industry is a good example here. I worked in restaurants for over a decade. But if you compare this industry here in the United States to Europe, for instance, we choose to operate under a system that creates way more server jobs, way more bartender jobs than are really necessary. This idea that you'll go to a restaurant and there will be 6 servers working, 2 bartenders, 2 hosts, it's just not something you see in Europe unless it's very fine dining. There are tons of examples of this. Again, I don't want to pigeonhole any one industry, but we make these choices to support these jobs that aren't necessary because we know that people need to work. So when it comes to jobs and AI and automation, it's concerning for sure, but just realize we can collectively just make the choice to keep people employed. It's really not that big of a problem. Now, another concern would be whether or not eventually robots are going to take over the world and slave us, try to kill us. Oh, this is definitely science fiction kind of thinking. But again, I would caution you to think about the fact that we still have the choice to make these machines, to make this artificial intelligence into whatever we want to make it into. We are at the helm here. So we can pray that in the future, in the distant future, some people don't get together and make the wrong choice on that one. But I will say, JJ, there's already harm that is being done to us as humans by automation and AI. There are a lot of trade jobs and jobs that have been traditionally done by craftsmen and women that are going away. They're either being automated away or they're being shipped overseas for cheaper labor. This is something that in our society we've seen has been quite detrimental. We are seeing more and more depression in America, more drug and alcohol use, a general malaise and feeling of worthlessness. And I think you can trace that to the rise of these jobs and these industries that are non-essential, potentially aren't things that we really need, but people are doing day in and day out. So we have to get a handle on that. And I think what we've seen in recent years is a reevaluation of how we cherish craft. This was initially mocked as hipsterism in the United States, this making of craft goods and selling them at high prices. But, there's something to be said for a handcrafted pair of boots or a really nice tweed hat, like say something you could get at Salmagundi there in Boston. We're also reevaluating the importance of actually taking part in some sort of craft. How important is it for our minds and our hearts to actually put our hands on something, to create something? So even if you are working in one of these mundane, meaningless, relatively non-essential jobs, it's important to pick up a hobby, learn to do something. Woodworking, playing an instrument, learning a foreign language, anything that stimulates the mind and pushes you further as a human being is going to help you throughout your life staying positive, staying away from depression and drug and alcohol use and things like that in order to fill that void. And it should be noted that artificial intelligence and automation really saves us a lot of time and enables us as human beings to pursue some of those things. Right, so that's going to be it for today. I have a nice episode coming for you tomorrow. I'm going to go for a nice long hike up a hill in the woods. We'll answer some of your other questions. So we'll see you guys tomorrow. Cheers.